Well, hi, everybody, and good afternoon. Hi. Well, I got to say I'm very impressed. I don't know about you guys, but the fact that it's a nice pool day outside and you guys chose to come in here at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on the last days of Tales, I am quite impressed. So thank you all for showing up. I guess tequila is a very strong pull. So I just want to introduce myself. My name's Elayne Duff. I've had the pleasure of being the ambassador and the mixologist for Diageo for the past 9 years. I don't like to age myself there. But I got to say, it's one of the best jobs in the world. I not only get to represent an incredible portfolio, I get paid to go drinking. I get to make cocktails, get to sit in a lot of your guys' incredible bars. But I also, one of my favorite parts of the job is things like this. When I get to pull together information that I have learned and also get to meet with incredible people like my panel to really understand everybody's points of view and their interests in this incredible spirit. Because it's one I'm truly passionate about. It's one of my favorite ones to drink when I'm out. And I like to see it keep advancing. So last year we touched on a few things about terroir and some things that are happening in the industry. And we thought, why not take this to the next level? So I want to introduce my panel because they are extremely diverse and lots of different views. So I'm going to give a quick introduction. So next to me is Ryan Fitzgerald. I think one of the best descriptions I've seen for him was he is a bartender's bartender. He's also a member and on the board of the Tequila Interchange Project. Next to him is Enrique de Colsa. He is the master distiller for Don Julio. Next to him is, I don't think a man needs any introduction, Mr. Tomas Estes. The man who has been named as the ambassador by the Tequila, make sure I say this, the Mexican National Tequila Chamber. And at the end is David Suro-Piñera. He's the founding member and president of the Tequila Interchange Project, as well as the president of Suro International Importers. So this really doesn't do injustice, so I wanted to give a quick introduction and just give you a little bit more about them. So Ryan, as he just quickly sent his text of, I've asked him for the last month who he is, how he wants me to introduce him. He just told me, he's like, I've been working in the industry for 25 years, so 25 years. But I managed to pull some things off of the internet, thank God for Google. But Brian's in hardworking opening of his own bar right now, so I won't give him too much shit. But Brian grew up in the industry. His parents actually met in the restaurant business. He was surrounded by sounds, aromas, tastes of all things. It's started in his blood about all things restaurant. He moved to San Francisco back in, if I don't say this correctly, somewhere in 1998. Where he was a barback at Little Balbo, and I didn't say that correctly. He made his way up to as a bartender at the Foreign Cinema. But his career really took off. For those of you who know the great bar, well, I don't know if it's still there at Tres Agaves, where I think that's probably where you found your love for tequila. And then he went to work at the famous Bourbon and Branch until then, and after that, Beretta, an incredible place. That's where I met Ryan. And now he's in the midst of opening up his own bar, where he actually took the time out. He literally is building it. I keep seeing things. It's open. It's open. To come here to talk to you guys today. So congratulations, Ryan. And next to him is Enrique de Colsa. Now, Enrique has been the master distiller for Don Julio for the past 15 years. He actually started off in 1999, where he actually began working under Mr. Don Julio himself. And he did so until 2003 when Don Julio retired. And until then, I must say, this man has worked truly hard at maintaining the quality and the prestige of that brand. So thank you very much for being here, Enrique. Thank you. Next to him is Tomas Estes. As I said, he is named as the ambassador by the Tequila Interchange, sorry, about to say Tequila Interchange Project, by the Mexican National Tequila Chamber of Commerce. He has been working in selling and promoting tequila around the globe. I don't want to age you there, but since 1976. So the man had been around.
You can see it on my face, right? I've earned this look.
He has earned that look, and as he has. But he has been tirelessly promoting tequila and the topic. If you have not gotten his book, The Tequila Ambassador, I don't know if you actually can still find it. It's on Amazon for like $1,500.
They were given away last year here, weren't they, Elayne?
Yes, they were. If you were lucky enough to be here last year, we actually gave away every person that was here got their own book, his ambassador. And I will say, the Tequila Ambassador is my reference guide. It really changed my view about the tequila industry and all the personalities in it. So it is an incredible guide. And also, he also has 2 amazing bars in London and in Paris. Still in Paris? 3 amazing bars.
The latest is the Agaveria.
So this man really knows the tequila inside and out. So thank you very much, Tomas, for being here.
Thank you, Elayne.
And next to him is David Suro-Piñera. Did I say that correctly? Yes. My Staten Island accent comes through. With a little bit of Spanish. So I expanded a little bit more in the game. So he was born in Guadalajara, migrated to Philadelphia in 1985, where he opened the very first upscale Mexican eatery, Tequilas. So really bringing the love and culture of all of Mexico and tequila to Philadelphia. He returned back to Jalisco in 1990, where he actually worked tirelessly on launching one of his own brands, Siembra Azul. And as well as he is, as I said, he is the president of the Tequila Interchange Project. And I think that came from his passion, and I want to make sure I say this correctly, that's why I wrote it down, for transparency and sustainability practices, as well as promoting historical and cultural values of the agave distilled spirits. So thank you so much, David.
Think we have any room for Ron Cooper?
We always have room for Ron Cooper. There's some seats up here. Joaquin, Ron, up here. Come on, Ron.
Make room for Ron.
Ron up here, right up there. The seat's right up there.
I give you my seat, Ron. Come on.
Yes. And Michael.
So for those of you who don't know, and also before I start, actually, I wanted to make sure, because my husband is the director of education, so if I don't say this, he might kill me. So for those of you who have not downloaded the app by now of Tails, there is a great app. It's the last day, so it's a little behind the times now. But you can go in there and you can, this is actually the hashtag for the seminar, Time versus Tech, as well as for Tails. You can go in there and you can rate the seminars and vote on them and what you thought about it, so that way we know if we sucked or not. And also know if we should continue doing things like this. So please make sure to vote on it afterwards. As I said, this is my panelists, and I've already realized I didn't give all these handsome pictures, but there you can see them in person and see how handsome they are. But I wanted to just tell you a little bit also about the Tequila Interchange Project for those of you who might not be familiar. It is, I will read this for you. The Tequila Interchange Project is a nonprofit organization and a consumer advocacy group for agave distilled spirits comprised of bartenders, consultants, educators, researchers, consumers, and tequila enthusiasts. Our organization advocates the preservation of sustainable, traditional, and quality practices in the industries of agave distilled spirits. So, and for most of our, I think is most important, the TIP seeks to place a renewed emphasis on the importance of preserving a great heritage of agave distillation in Mexico. So I think it's a really amazing organization. So we're going to start off. Before we start also, I just wanted to say one thing. This panel is extremely diverse, as you can tell. There are going to be a lot of opinions put out here today. Not all of them are the views of every single one on this panelist. So I want you to take each one of them as an individual view and opinion about that particular topic. I think it's really important for all of us that you know that, because we all have our own vested interests, and we also have our own opinions about how this great spirit is treated and preserved. So, but I think that's one thing that we can all agree upon, all of us here, is that we really want to truly preserve the heritage and the quality of this incredible spirit. And that is why we're all here today to discuss it. So before we go on, and also one last thing about questions. We will be taking questions actually during the seminar instead of at the end, because last year we actually ran out of time. That being said, if there's going to be a very long question, I might cut you off, because there's a lot of stuff to discuss in this seminar. So I might ask you to hold that question until the seminar is finished, and I'm sure these guys would love to hang out here. Right, guys? Nod. If I'm saying the right thing.
As long as there's enough tequila or mezcal here, agave spirits.
To make sure that way, feel free, and I'll let you know when it's time to ask the questions, because there is a lot of stuff for us to discuss here today. So the reason why this seminar came together and the reason why this panel came together is because we actually pitched very similar ideas. is that obviously as we progress as humans, technology keeps advancing. I mean, thank God for all of us. I don't think anybody can remember what we did without our iPhone, right? I don't know how we got anywhere before it or actually got any work done. We actually had to sit at home, right? We couldn't be at bars actually pretending to work. So this being said, obviously, even in a place like Mexico, those technologies are obviously integrating into their culture. And some of them are good and some of them are bad. And that's why this seminar got put together, to find out if some of these things really are bad, like is there really a huge quality change in the product itself? Or is it just a slight change in flavor, but not a disintegration in quality? So we're going to discuss a lot of those things today to find out exactly where there might be great disparities or where it might just be, hey, it's up to the consumer. As Thomas said, let the consumer decide. But I actually said, sometimes consumers are stupid. So we have to make sure that we educate them so that they make better choices. So that is what we're going to talk about today. So because the one joke, and I'm sorry, it's going to be a bad one, but I think you can all agree, and I said, back in the day, we had a Tahona versus a mill. I'm sure that donkey is very happy that the tractor started being used instead of him. There you go. That's my only joke for the day. All right. So it's not a very good one. So the agave. So obviously, this is where this product comes from. The most important thing, and probably the thing we're going to talk about most today, is the agave itself and this plant, because it is so important, obviously, to the tequila industry. And there's a lot of changes going here. So I want to kind of set a baseline, because there obviously are rules and regulations that have been instituted by the government, by the CRT, and also a document called the NOM, which we're all very familiar with, that we must follow. So it all starts with the planting of the agave itself. So I wanted to turn to you, Enrique, because as a master distiller and as well as an expert in this industry, I know you are very proud of following the NOM to the law and to the letter. So can you tell us the process in which everybody is supposed to follow when they're planting?
Of course. Well, how are you, everyone? And well, Don Julio has been recognized, and I talk, of course, by Don Julio as a brand, as a person. And just we were talking with David that Don Julio Gonzalez created the marvelous tequila that we have because he was first an agave lover. I said that he knew more of agave than tequila. Believe me, he was an amazing guy who developed everything in the agave. And since that, the heritage, one of the main heritage for us, was that the way that we keep the agave, the way that we handle, how we select our fields for planting, how we select the baby agaves to plant it again. And of course, it's not a rule for all the producers. What we try to do in Don Julio is first only select fields that are surrounding the distillery. We are no more than 100 kilometers surrounding the distillery that provide the same flavors, aromas all the time because the height and the soil. Of course, into the norm, the CRT, the main thing that they keep is that you must to have the agave planted into the denomination of origin, okay? That is the 5 states that you know that we can produce tequila. That is the main concern for the CRT. When any producer we plant agave each year, the plantation is between February to June. We have only 6 months to register. We need to say where it was planted, how many plants, what is the population by field, total, and also we need to declare for the producers, in terms of Don Julio, we own 85% of our own agave, but we buy into the markets another 15%, the people that we know, a supplier that have been for many years. And then during those 6 months, you need to register your own agave, but also you need to prove the rest of the agave that you needed for the continue the next year. Okay, this is recently changed. About 1 year ago, CRT was taking care only where you planted to be inside of the denomination, but now you need to provide who are going to be the suppliers with your agave again, and for the third ones, in order to guarantee how you are going to produce tequila, supporting with that.
Nice. So I want to talk a little bit more about terroir, because obviously that's the rules on how and where you plant your agave. And I know it's really important for you to stay near the field so you get the same flavors consistently in your tequila. Now, Thomas, I put your quote up there because I always like this one from your book. If you want to have a good hamburger, you want to start with good meat from a well-bred, well-cared-for cow. The same applies to starting with raw material for tequila. Now, your tequila, Tequila Ocho, is known for the terroir. There's something very specific you do. Now, I'm assuming you follow the same regulations that Enrique does, because those are the ones set by the NOM, but you do something very distinct.
So I am a part of Tequila Ocho, which is produced by Carlos Camarena and his family, who also, when they have their own agaves left over, I believe they sell to Don Julio.
You're one of those suppliers. Yeah.
Yes. So you're getting some good quality tequila. You're getting some good hamburger meat for your hamburger. And so, Elayne, when I first came to the opportunity of being able to make a tequila with Carlos Camarena, I came out of a rather deep experience and background, having lived in Europe for 25 years, going 19 years in a row to taste Burgundy en primeur, notably in Vaux-Romanée and Puligny-Montrachet, and then walking with the wine producers up in the Côte on the side of the hill, visiting Grand Cru pieces of ground, Premier Cru, Village, generic across the Route Nationale. And from this experience, when Carlos Camarena and I were talking about developing this particular brand of tequila, we got a sample that we liked rather well. And I said to him, Carlos, you know, there's this understanding on the part of those people that are paying attention that the tequilas in the Tequila Valley made from those agaves, local, such as Fortaleza is one of them, still there in the market. And there are fewer and fewer of those that can say that are Tequila Valley tequilas with only agaves from that region. Is that true, Enrique and David?
Yeah.
So back to this story, I said, you know, there's this idea that those tequilas are different as a generality to those of the highlands. He said, yes. So I said, well, let us see if we can make a single vineyard, a single ranch, a single field, a place that shows sense of place. And terroir, to me, the definition is all of the natural elements that surround that place. That would be the soil, the topsoil, the below soil, the substrata. It would be the way that the land sits. Is it flat, or is it facing toward the sun or away from the sun? The wind that comes through, the temperatures, the humidity, everything. So Carlos said, yes, we can do that. We can do that, but be careful. And I said, oh, that's something new to me. I'm not afraid of too many things. I said, why, Carlos? Why be afraid? He said, because each one will be different. And that's what we have found now. Ron Cooper is a veteran of that in the mezcal culture. I think Ron has told me that each meter difference in altitude, they find a whole different air there, different things in the air. So this whole idea of nature's diversity, nature's wonderful spectrum of all kinds of different subtle and invisible elements is what we talk about when we talk about terroir, I believe, in the wine industry, which has exhibited and done that for a long, long time. And now we are discovering that in the tequila culture, and again, the other agave spirits have it naturally, I believe. And I would say that for me, Don Julio has always represented to me a very typical flavor profile of the highlands. That I would characterize, and by the way, this is only my opinion. There are others that don't agree, but since I'm the tequila ambassador, you must listen to me. I would characterize the highland tequila made from those agaves as feminine, to use a wine term. I would call it recessive. I would call it rather sweet, round, floral, and very easy to drink. So there's a plug for my sponsor here tonight to show my gratitude for being a part of this.
So Tomas, so as we know, so we both have established that terroir is extremely important, and we established that last year, and you guys both touched upon it. And you know, you do it for certain reasons, where you plant your agaves, and you discovered it through wine and what you're doing with Ocho, and we know that this is true, but we also know some things are changing. Like we know, and I'm sorry we didn't get your really cool map from Keynote. You know, there are very specific territories in which the law regulates, but we've heard rumors that people are changing this, that people are, you know, this is where you're supposed to get your blue agave, from these 5 states. So David, I know you have noted that one of the reasons Tequila Interchange Project has become so active is some of these things are changing. People are kind of going outside of where they're supposed to. And I want to know, can people tell the difference?
Well, yes. I mean, it's more and more people. We have more and more educated consumers on tequila and agave distilled spirits. So somebody who has some level of knowledge of these spirits will definitely be able to taste the difference. And, you know, it's interesting because the cycle for production of tequila is such a long cycle. I mean, we go from 5 to 12 years. And during the times when inventories are okay to supply the very thirsty tequila industry, things are very easy to try. Usually producers are very, you know, they are capable to obtain agaves from near their source, near their distilleries. But, you know, things change drastically in times like right now. You know, we are going right now to almost a year of tremendous increase on prices of agave. So the whole industry really get this unbalance, and we start to see agaves getting from outside of the appellation of origin, and you know, something that we're very concerned, not just in the Tequila Interchange Project, but I think, you know, agave distilled spirits lovers are very concerned. I'm more concerned for the mezcal industry losing a lot of the raw material they need for their category than the tequila category. I mean, the tequila, I think to bring espadín into the tequila category is a great thing for tequila. We're gonna have a better tequila, period, because I think espadín is a species that it has a lot more to give us. But obviously it's illegal. It's illegal, and it's something that we have to be aware, and we have to create awareness that is happening as we're speaking, because we are in one of those cycles where the inventories for the tequila industry are getting very low, and we have to go and outsource somewhere else.
Ryan, is there any impact you're seeing on the industry side?
Well, I guess I'd like to explain sort of how that whole thing works, just for those that may not. I mean, it seems like we've all know tequila. Those of us that are in this room know tequila. We all have been told and taught for so long. It's so regulated, and it's such a source of pride. But what we're seeing is this, you know, obviously, like the wine industry, there's negociants. You know, people are farmers of agave. People buy agave from those farmers. And then producers buy those agave from those negociants, or what are they known as, coyotes, not the guys that sneak you across the border, which are also coyotes, but the coyotes that buy agave from farmers and sell to producers. Now, obviously, there's no record of where they're getting their agaves, and it makes it a little bit more difficult to trace where these agaves come from, but it also makes it easier for them as coyotes to sell illegal agaves to producers that may or may not be wise to that fact. So, that being the case, you know, it obviously is affecting the mezcal industry in a big way. Prices are going to rise in the mezcal industry because now there's a higher demand for those illegal agaves that are being harvested in Oaxaca and brought to Jalisco to maybe make tequila, maybe not. There isn't really exactly proof of that just yet, but it seems pretty obvious that the license plates that are in Oaxaca are coming from Jalisco. So And I mean, that's a huge effect on the industry. I mean, I think also Tomas mentioned fewer and fewer valley tequilas in existence now, and I think that's a sad thing for all of us here. I mean, we've all talked a lot about in this seminar about what we love about tequila, and what we're going to talk about more is this idea of variety, and that's such a great thing to be celebrated in tequila. There's so many different ways to produce things, and some great, some not so great, some really bad, but it just adds to this variety of tequila that the consumer has. And one of these things that's happening because of multiple different reasons, people are now sourcing agaves from not just in that valley area and making, you know, a truly traditional valley tequila. Now they're sourcing their agave from other areas in the denomination of origin or outside of it. And obviously that's going to change things. And like David said, Espadín is going to be only a good thing for the tequila industry, but with or without these regulations that are working or not working, you know, it can negatively affect the mezcal industry, and positively affect the tequila industry. It's just, there needs to be awareness of it, and there needs to be something done about it so that it goes in a logical and sustainable fashion, which is, I think, one of the things that the Tequila Interchange Project is really focused on at this point.
No, it's great. And one of the things I was actually concerned about was the fact that, you know, we were all, especially about coming to terroir, I mean, we all learned, you know, anything from the Tequila Valley had earthy or spicier. And like you said, anything from the highlands where it's supposed to be more floral and juicy. Well, if your guys are saying, what you're saying, this can't be trusted. Meaning, like, people are buying from the Tequila Valley are no longer just sourcing from their local area. Not many of them are. Only a few are. So you can't always say, oh, that's a lowland. Oh, I'm sorry, Tequila Valley. I keep saying lowland. I know it's the wrong terminology. As I was schooled yesterday. It was how I was taught. It was lowlands and highlands. It just changed, Tequila Valley. So, but yeah, so meaning that we can't trust it, because that is something that I was always, when we were doing tastings, it was something very distinct that we would look for, was to look for that earthy, spicy taste. But now I was saying it could come from a highland, it could come from a lowland, or it just could be coming from anywhere. Definitely something to be worried about. Now, the other thing I know that we're really worried about, and we touched about it a little bit last year, was that we proved that the blue agave is now becoming, is no longer biodiverse. With the lack of biodiversity, is now becoming a monoculture. Meaning there is no, if you take, look at the DNA from one agave plant to the next, there's no difference. They're all exactly the same. They're exactly, so the actual mother plant is just reproducing pups. There's no sexual reproduction. It's just naturally doing itself, because as you said, it's a very smart plant, and it knows how to survive. So obviously this can cause some concerns. One of the biggest concerns, obviously, being disease. We saw it in Floraxa in the Cognac region when it wiped out. I know in Mexico there is a fungus that sometimes grows in the plants, and also soft rot is something that is wiping out. And there's also a lot of abandoned fields, because as prices fluctuate, sometimes they abandon it and it spreads. So this is a concern for all of us, because it could wipe out the entire blue agave species. So that being said, is there things that are being done to change that, or is something drastic going to happen for the industry so that we, don't have, there's no risk of us losing the entire species?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I always say that we are in the epicenter of agaves worldwide. There is no other country in the world that it has such a variety of agaves, and most of them endemic from our states. So I never understand the reason why we have to, on the tequila, which is obviously the big brother as far in terms of production of agave distilled spirits, why we have to have the agave tequilana Weber as the species used to produce tequila. And we were talking yesterday, one of the only solutions that we see in the future to try to bring a little bit more diversity and to sustain our industry will be to open up to another species. I don't think the agave tequilana Weber right now, where we are, is going to be capable to survive much longer for such a thirsty category. So I know it's something that is very difficult in terms of the industry to try to, it's not even a debate yet, but remember, whatever decisions we take today we're really gonna see the impact 7, 8, or up to 12 years from now. So we are behind already in the decisions and the strategies that we have to have as an industry to protect the future of what's going to be the sugar sources.
I mean, one of the members of the Tequila Interchange Project in Mexico, Dr. Patricia Colunga, has said there are no wild blue agaves in existence. They don't exist. They cannot actually reproduce sexually anymore. They can only clone themselves, and that's not a good sign. So it's a pretty big harbinger of what could eventually come. But
How many other species how many other types? I know there's lots of types of agaves, but is there any others that you have identified that you think would be compatible?
Espadín.
Espadín, okay.
Espadín.
Is that the major one?
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of species in Jalisco to grow. They're from that region. It's just the willingness from the industry, but we have to understand that one of the reasons that the Agave Tequilana Weber was selected as the only source is because out of all the agaves, all the species, the Agave Tequilana Weber is the one that takes the shorter period of time to reach maturity. You don't have to wait like 20 years from some agaves to grow in other regions of Mexico. And it's also I was waiting for you to raise the hand, but it's also the species that generate more clones, more offshoots, more hijuelos. So in terms of a spreadsheet, is the species that it makes more sense for big producers.
It's not a matter of opening up the fields, it's opening up the minds. A closed mind doesn't receive much. Does everybody know Dr. Iban Saldaña, by the way? Yeah, you do. My understanding of the current situation comes from Carlos Camarena, who is an agavero as well as a tequilero, means he and his family grow their agaves as well as producing tequila from some of those. And also my information comes from Jesus Hernandez, who I saw yesterday. Is Jesus in the room? Okay, now Carlos is not here and Jesus is here, so I can say anything I want without them protesting, right? My understanding with their plants, which are being grown by them or looked after by them, the blue agave plants, is that during the time when there was too many, there was a glut. Thank you, Mr. Bailey, Dr. Bailey. There was a glut. There was so much of a glut that the growers it was not economical to harvest, whether it was paid to somebody else or not, because they couldn't recuperate their expense in the market. So during this time, fields became abandoned. They were filled with weeds, which could contribute to pestilence and disease. So it was during, 3 years ago, as recent as that, when we had bad conditions in the agave fields. Now, because the demand and supply has flipped around and the price is going up, people are looking after their fields. So according to Carlos Camarena and Jesus, their blue agaves are okay. We can well understand, and especially I'm going to say this in the presence of Iban, that when we have this monoculture, if it has strengths, that's great. If it has weaknesses, they all have the same weakness. So I suppose the problem could be if one of those weaknesses got rampant and went across the whole community of agaves, then there would be a really serious problem. We have had such things before, and it has been dealt with. So I personally would love, within the nature, within the philosophy of diversity, I would love to have more openness with the species. So there's my 3 pesos, my 3 centavos.
If we have 3 variations of the Tequilana Weber, it should be something that can be accommodated in a much shorter period of time.
Good.
No? I mean, Enrique, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm agreeing in several things about that because we suffer, as Tom mentioned exactly, we suffer that. Even of course, we take all the care that we can have in our fields. We are surrounding from the ones that abandon their fields, and we suffer. In the last 3 years, we lost 25% for a good agave. No? You put a lot of money on that, and then you receive the infections around. We receive that kind of things, and then we can be, I don't say at this time promoters, but open to analyze what's happening with the future. No?
I mean, really, it's the change is going to happen from within the industry, and that the producers that are active can make that change happen.
Absolutely.
I believe that your voice today is as important as the voices during NOM 186. We saw that speaking up and being verbal, and by the way, really thank you to each one of you for having come to this agave-centric, this agave subject matter at Tales of the Cocktail. I heard today or yesterday somebody say, well, there's not very many activities around agave official, but there's activities about agave drinking and carrying on everywhere amongst the bartending and cocktail community or family. I think we're all a family more than a community. And so that's wonderful, and thanks for each of you to be here, and keep an open mind and pass that on. Be verbal, be active about it, because your voice is heard.
Thank you, Tomas.
Eventually.
I don't know if my voice is heard anymore. So I think that's a subject I guess maybe we can open up for next year. Who knows? So maturation. This is something obviously important. It's also something that I've seen change. Different distillers have different views about when they cut down their agaves. What time? Some just do it all at once. They cut down as a row of 5-year-olds and they automatically harvest them. Some, I know like Don Julio, they handpick them to make sure they reach their peak of maturation. But I know it's a distiller's choice, but I do believe, I mean, I would love to know what the disadvantages when you pick it too early versus the advantages when it actually is fully mature.
When did we think we were going to start tasting, Elayne? Because I think that would make everybody feel a little bit better.
Would you like to start tasting? Are you ready? Are you thirsty,
Please
Tomas?
excuse me. Now I'm not going to be invited back next year, even though I plugged Don Julio pretty well, I think.
It's coming up, Tomas. It's coming up.
That's Tomas.
Sure, we can taste now. Then we can talk about the weather. All right, so in front of you, we're actually just going to taste number 1 and number 2 to give you, since we've been talking a lot about terroir. This is a great example. Number 1 is a lowland tequila. When we're talking, number 1.
Is it what? Tequila?
Oh, sorry, a valley, Tequila Valley. Sorry, for 8 years it was told me, lowland. So Tequila Valley. Tequila. And it's one that is, we're going to do a blind tasting, and then later on we will talk about which one is which. But this is one we truly respect. They do hold everything, they do everything the old traditional way, sourcing their own agaves from the lowlands, using tajonas, using clay ovens. It is really just a great example of what a true lowland tequila should taste like. Tequila Valley. Fuck.
Valley and Los Altos, yeah.
Salud. Thank you.
So as you experience these 2 tequilas, smell them both. This is a Jesus Hernandez fashion of experiencing tasting. Smell them both. See, you can get the difference simply on the nose, couldn't you?
Absolutely, yeah. And number 2, definitely a great representation of terroir from the Highlands. I got that one right?
Well done. We're
Thank
going to
you.
let you come back next year.
Thank
then,
you,
in
thank
this
you.
case. If
We're
there
all
is
finding a
anything
drink
about agave spirits like tequila, it's fun. So let's have some fun, huh?
That's what tequila's for.
Here's to that. So the one major concern while you're drinking those that we've seen, we were talking about a little bit of maturation, was that, obviously it's a distiller's choice when they should harvest their agaves, how they do it, waiting the full 5 years, 7 years, 8 years until they're fully mature. Some choose to take them all out at once. Some choose to save money and cut them down before their peak. We're also noticing that things are changing. One thing we were talking about is because of, if you never believe, climate change. Thomas was telling me that Cameroons was saying that it's actually 2 degrees hotter in their fields, which is actually causing the plant to mature faster. So the standard that we all knew about 5 to 7 years is actually becoming shorter. But it's not also a good thing. You would think that would be great. We can get our tequila faster. But it's not, because it's also causing the agave plant to have less sugar. So I know we discussed it a little bit. I know you wanted to expand on that a little bit more about why it's so important for you to get the proper amount of sugar and the maturation.
Yeah, it's not that much of a choice of the producer. You have a window of about 6 months when the agaves are reaching maturity, and you have to harvest agaves. If you harvest before, yes, you will have less sugar content. So it's not in economical terms, it's not smart from a producer to harvest earlier. Some of the agaves that they are bringing to the process of tequila, they are agaves that came from the arrastre. Arrastre is kind of like the leftover on the fields after, they are handpicked by the mature agaves, and there are some percentage of the field that it doesn't get to the level of maturity. Some companies, they prefer just to harvest those agaves, and they call arrastre, agave de arrastre, and they bring it into the process. One of the problems you're going to have with those agaves is that you're going to get a lot of stringency on your tequilas. So it's not recommended for a quality tequila to bring agaves into your distillery. They're not perfectly mature. Yeah.
I think we talked about it a little bit yesterday too. It's kind of a chicken or the egg thing. We're here to talk about time and technology, and why is this technology being brought into the industry? Well, one of the answers could be, well, we'll bring this technology in that will make it easier for us to extract these sugars from these plants, which, again, if you have fewer sugars, then you have a bigger need to extract all those sugars, so that then you have a need to use a type of technology that wasn't traditionally used. So it's kind of this chicken or the egg. Was it because the agaves have, you're harvesting young and you need to get more sugars out of them, or is it, it goes both ways, and it's not true for everyone across the board, but that's, I think, where this is most relevant, really, this
Right.
idea.
If you start cutting quarters here, where else are you going to start cutting quarters in the future?
Well,
so there's definitely.
Excuse me, Elayne, go ahead. I don't want to get in worse trouble with you.
Well, I definitely know, so there's definitely, this is where the influence of man comes in. So obviously your choice of when you harvest your agave, you have something.
Exactly. Some producers do not want an overripe agave, which some do. Some want a younger to have a more neutral flavor. They may end up chill filtering, which is part of this technology. Chill filtering, carbon filtering. They may use various column stills during that time, which is not a very recent technology, but certainly is technology within the agave spirits category. And that is their choice. It might be commercially driven within their production, or it might be commercially driven in what they want to offer to the public because they think it will sell. What's the biggest, is the biggest selling category vodka today? Mm-hmm. Okay, so some tequila producers may want to have a tequila-like, a vodka-like
Vodka flavor.
tequila. That's their choice, and some of them do very well. They may have to have the help of massive marketing, but that's another story that we could go into another time.
Whoa, slight dig. So we're going to get into that all about distillation and columns. But I know one of the things when When you when you choose as a producer, you choose and you harvest your agave. You obviously have to bring them back to your plant. Now, sometimes you can just pick it. Obviously the humidors know which ones are ripe, and they're harvesting them. But when they come back to the distillery, there's also one more step that a producer can take to make sure they're getting the optimal agave. So, Enrique, can you tell us a little bit more about what are the process when you bring it back? I mean, this is obviously a ripe. You inspect the agave to make sure that they are at the right color, they're the right, have the right sugars, the amount of bricks. What is the process that everybody goes through?
First, to go to this question, I'm sorry, and put more opinions about what they say. Not is only a matter of high concentration of sugar. It's also, of course, flavors. Flavors and aromas, what you want to produce. That's what, in some way, I say that yes, it's part of the distiller decision. What you do, and I'm agreeing with you, with the good and nice brands, we use ripe agave, but because you have, again, the sugar is quite important because it's the one that is going to transform in alcohol, but all around, the flavors and aromas, it's come with the age in the agave, and that's what is also important, no? Because if you want to give a different character, you need the ripe ones. And well, in terms of Don Julio, what we have it also, again, with this passion for the agave, we receive from our fields, again, 80-85% of what we cultivate, and we buy for a third one, another 15%. And for all ones, even Don Julio, if a plant doesn't come with more than 20 kilos and more than 23% of sugar, we reject it. Okay, we send it back. We don't accept. Is a way that we can guarantee that we can preserve the consistency in the flavors and aromas. We discharge instead. What we do is we take it out from a truck. We select randomly 10 piñas, and then we drill it. We take it out the internal part. Of course, we measure measure sugar in terms of follow the production, but that's the total complete. How to say, category say to say if it's good for our production or not. For the ones that I'm pretty sure that many of you have been in a distillery, you can see the piñas when you have I don't know, some ones there has a purple or a black leaf. When you cut one of the leaves, one of the pencas, you can find 2 or 3 that cuts. It's called that is sangrando. Okay, that is like a bloody agave. That is one of the characteristics that we have. If the agave doesn't have at least 2 or 3 of that, is the perfect way that you don't have a really ripe agave, and that's what we reject or accept, at least in Don Julio.
So, David, I know you said this is standard. Everybody has to do a test. Well, at least they have to, they test their agaves. They might not reject them as easily. But it is a test for the CRT. You have to tell them how many agaves you have and how much liquid, so they know how much tequila you're going to produce. But what happens with all the rejected agaves?
Well, there is nothing on the norm that it tells you that you have to throw them away. I mean,
Right.
this is just the producer's choice, and that's when you have producers who are making good tequila and producers to make a mediocre tequila. And if you don't mind, I just,
go for it.
Cece, talking about technology,
Yes.
somebody in cyberspace raised their hand, and I think it's an interesting. I think it's an interesting question.
Yes.
Because we're going through this war on prices on agave, and somebody in cyberspace asked if the price was impacted by the cartels, just like the limes. Remember limes? They were. It was painful to make a cocktail that has lime. Just 3-4 months ago because the cartels, and I don't think that's the case. That we have cartels, that much cartel activity in. I don't know, Enrique. You there?
Yes, of course. I don't think so that the price has been affected, but in terms of security, yes. Michoacán, is around 30 counties in Michoacán. Municipios, ¿cómo se dice en los counties? Communities, about 25, 30 communities there is in Michoacán. That is one of the really non-safe states in Mexico. It's near of the border of Jalisco. And yes, we have suffering things in terms, again, to some people abandon also their fields because it was hard to be there. But it's not a percentage that really impact the price. But yet the on security and to give a special care to go inside of Michoacan.
So since we have just covered that topic, I know everybody would like to have a drink again, because I know I could use one. So we're going to taste another Highland, number
Did you
3.
want to identify those two, or those were blind tasted, I think you said, Elayne?
We are. We're going to wait till the end.
Oh, at the end. Okay,
Yeah.
good.
It's a surprise, Tomas.
Oh, good. I'm impatient, as you know.
Some of you already might have guessed.
Drink it anyway.
So number 3 is Highland Tequila, also one that uses mostly traditional methods. The only thing more on the advance on more technology is a mill, which is used by many of the, actually all of the Highland tequilas we have here all use a mill rather than a tahona. So traditional, but definitely representing the true, a nice true flavor of what a Highland should taste like. Very floral, citrusy, fruity. And quite yummy.
It's nice. So.
So one of the biggest controversies that are going on, people have been talking about it, because I know this is the day and age of craft spirits. And if I have one more person tell me, well, yeah, but that person's grandmother sweated in the pot, and like it was made in somebody's like house in their basement, so it must be better than that one down the street. You know, some things are not, just because somebody handmade it doesn't mean it's always good. So there are definitely some advancements that have happened in the industry, and definitely one of the biggest controversies I've seen is people talking about, you know, they use a clay oven, and they use an autoclave. So I would love for you guys to open up, like, you know, talking about what is the difference? Like, is there a benefit to one over the other? Obviously, I know there is in speed and time. The difference may be in flavor profiles. Enrique, I know that you choose to use a clay oven for Don Julio. Is there a reason why you choose to use that over the autoclave?
Well, the first reason is because Don Julio did it in that way. Really, the real one that chose what to do in that time was Don Julio Gonzalez. And that was, we're still having the same stone or traditional ovens. The advantage by far is, again, the complexity of the flavor. Is when you cook in a pottery, or comparing with a pressure pot, okay? Sometimes I can say that it is not better or worse, but of course you have differences. One of the main one is you have more metal flavors in your tequila when you use the autoclave. The advantage, of course, are speed. You lose less time to cooking. The transformation even needs to be more careful in the autoclaves, because you cook so fast that if you go over the cooking time, you caramelize so fast the agave, and then in some terms you need to be a little more careful with that. But you are going to obtain more flavors and more quantity of complexity when you use the stone, the typical ones. Okay, that is.
So David, I know, I mean, some people,
Yeah.
there is some good ones made with the autoclave as well, and I know you would
Yes,
agree.
Yeah.
So what can David, do you want to explain?
feel-
Sorry.
So I just wanted to ask, can you cook using an autoclave over the same time that you would?
Can you speak up, please, sir?
Can you, like, the time it takes to use?
Or do you want the Elayne microphone?
Would you like to speak
you,
into
you
the
want, you want
microphone?
Elayne, please go to Mr. Bailey.
Would you like to speak into my boobs too?
Yes. Even with his camera.
Yeah.
This is what Agave does.
Come on, Phil.
I'm asking, can you cook the same amount of time using an autoclave as you would with a clay oven? If you use very low pressure, and would that have a difference?
Yeah, but you defeat the purpose of use
Exactly.
autoclave. Yeah, but you know, one of the other elements that I think is interesting on the difference between brick ovens and autoclaves, there is one issue with the autoclave that some people, very smart people in the industry, were able to solve by draining the aguamiel, the mieles amargas, the bitter honeys. So, and that was one of the problems that you have in autoclaves, because they pressurize. So the agave is all the bluish color that you see on the agave. They are waxes to cover the plant. And when those waxes are bring into the process, we generate bitter honeys and also elements that are difficult for people to metabolize. So what I see in some of the agave, the tequila producers, they use autoclaves. They decide to put a drainage, and during the cooking period, they drain those bitter honeys, which I think is very smart. Now the difference is the time where you transforming the inulin and the starches into fermentable sugars, the time. And I agree with Enrique, that when you use less temperature and more time to convert those starches into fermentable sugars, you're gonna be able to gain some flavor, some more organoleptic elements.
There is so much dogmatic black and white speak about, oh, it has to be this in order for it to be good. It has to be this in order for, if it's this, it's automatically bad. And we're obviously seeing the market respond to that. We're seeing people respond to this dogma of, oh, you got to have a Tahona. And now we're seeing more brands talking about, well, we got a Tahona, so it must be good now. And that's a great thing. It's a great thing. It's marketing in one way, but it's also, it's obviously a production choice as well. I think it's a really great thing that it's happening. But it's also, this discussion isn't that easy to talk about. It's nothing. None of these things are black and white. Everyone can use pretty much all of this different technology to make something really well, and people can use old school technology to make something really poorly. We were talking about mixtos the other day, about how Enrique said there's plenty of mixtos out there he'd rather drink than some of the 100% agave tequilas that are out there. And that's has a lot to do with the fact that 100% agave over the past 10 years has become, oh, you got to drink 100% agave. You can't drink any mixtos at all, no matter what. And it's this dogma that this seminar is, hopefully, if we still have enough time, we can kind of get rid of that and start to say it's not black and white. There is a lot of, it's all gray. And unfortunately, we can't sit here and there is no list out there that sort of says, that gives everyone the information. The information is not necessarily easy to find, but it's kind of out there, and more seminars like this will shed more light on information like that.
But
Yeah,
just one last thought.
Yeah, go for it.
30 seconds, I'm sorry. No other spirit on the world of spirits use a raw material that it takes such a long period of time. Why we have to rush the process? Why Mother Nature worked so hard for 5, 10, 12, 20 years, and we have to rush, and now there is tequilas. There are technology that allow us to produce tequilas in 24 hours from agave to alcohol to spirit. So that's just a thought. I think agave distilled spirits don't belong to, they're not that easy to bring into these advanced technology, efficiency.
No, agreed. We all know, and as you said, a great point was that I've tasted bad agaves, bad tequila that have been made the complete traditional way, and I've tasted great ones that have made, with all the, advanced technology. I would actually like us to do a tasting, because number 5 is made by a really awesome woman, I think who's in this room, who learned. Oh, 4. Is it 4?
The 4.
Sorry.
No, 5 is.
No, it's 5. It's 5. It's
We're
5.
skipping 4.
Sorry,
Skipping 4 for a minute.
I'm skipping. Sorry, didn't make that clear. Don't confuse me, people.
We do go to
All right, so I confuse you. So we're skipping number 4 just for a second, because just talking about autoclaves, because this tequila here is a Highland. She uses a mill. She uses a autoclave, but she has learned, because she is a biochemist engineer, how to use an autoclave in the correct way so she only gets the best flavors out of her tequila, and also through special fermentation. So I think this is if you want to taste, this is a great example of, if you're going to use technology, doing it right. Here's Sophie, or she is. So the other thing is the Tahona versus the mechanical mill. This is a big one. As you said, you touched upon it, Ryan, that a lot of companies are now that have been kind of criticized in the past for doing, being too big, are now going back to the old school way of doing things. And I do believe some of it's marketing. They know that we're looking for, the old way of doing it, so they're, bringing in a bunch of Tahonas, and they're trying to make themselves look like a craft product. I know we still want to talk about this. We have a bigger thing to talk about after this, but just briefly, differences between the mill and the Tahona, like flavor profile-wise. Enrique?
Cool.
Okay.
Well, the basic compound when you use the Tahona is the fiber of the agave remains there up to the time that you are milling. During that time, you are macerate all the agave and the fibers with the juices. When you use the mechanical mill, you're still having a part of that fibers, but immediately, really, you put away juices or water, the sweet waters, from the large quantity of fiber. When you ferment the liquid that comes from the tahona into the fermentation, you have that fibers that in the reaction with the yeast, you obtain methanol, one of the main compounds of the tequila, and one of the main flavors of the tequila is the methanol that is, of course, controlled in terms of a Mexican norm, but you will have a strongly flavors when you make it in the tahona by far.
Right.
And when
But
you
both
go
of
to
them
the
have good
mechanical,
flavor.
both are good, but in terms of strong, you receive part of the tahona, and then the mechanical things, you separate. You left part of the fiber inside, and that is the main difference. No, but since the part of the furnace to the rest of the process we are going to talking, that if you gentlemen agree, that's what really said that really decision of the distillery, no, or the
Because the mill
guy
seems to
make
be
it.
more common. I mean, I know you guys.
Exactly. The more regular that affect or not is the milling. No, of course, the tahona is more traditional, but it's where you don't have too many changes if you make it with one or the other. No, that is only
David,
to
would you,
enhance
and
part of
Thomas, would you agree?
Brother?
Yeah, all right. Well, the analogy that we used yesterday, that is, Ivan can give us the scientific analogy, but a very simple one. Maceration versus mills, you have a salsa and molcajete. When you macerate by hand, you're gonna get extremely good flavors on that salsa. When you use the blender, you're gonna have a complete different flavors. It's the same thing. You bring in the raw material in different form, and you're gonna obtain different flavors. So, I think, the tahona was changed because the demand for production. I mean, it's a lot longer, the process of macerate with the tahona, with, as you say, the donkey going around, than use the sugar mills, which is the ones that we use in the tequila industry. Yeah. So it's efficiency again.
Efficiency.
It definitely is efficiency, and there are three producers that I can think of: Siete Leguas, Patron, and Altos or Olmeca, that both make milled tequilas and tahona tequilas. And in each case, I have tried, with some of you in the room, these flavor comparisons. Only tahona from them and only mill from them. Patron, Siete Leguas, and Altos. Is there a difference? Absolutely. There's a difference in everything. There's a very big difference in those. Well, let's say, really studying it, there are differences. What are the differences? That is what is hard to describe. If we are looking for a very agave-led, agave-forward product in our tequila, I have never found myself, nor the ones that have been in that tasting with me, that in a tahona-only tequila compared to mill tequila from the same producer is more agave concentrated. So it does make a difference, and the difference is important, and it will affect each of our preferences, I'm sure.
And at the end of the day, I mean, I think we all agree it's the distiller's choice and what the consumers want and what kind of profile, taste profile they want to achieve.
Yep.
So I think one of the big things I know that you guys, well, it says tasting, but we've already kind of skipped over, but we can do taste one more before, let's taste the last one, number 4. Also a Highland, uses a mix of traditional and more advanced technology, a mill, but also a clay oven. I do like I think the fermentation process has something to do with music that I've heard is quite unique. and also using distilled in a copper pot still, which all of these are. But I think one of the biggest advances that I know a lot of people on this panel wanted to talk about, especially David and Ryan, and Enrique is going to kind of talk about it a little bit, is the diffuser. Because this is something that has happened in this industry, and it's been a huge controversy for a lot of people. So Enrique, can you explain how the diffuser works?
Well, as Ivan said, what you wanted in all the process to separate or extract the sugar from the fiber is the way that you do it. In terms of the diffuser goes without what Ivan and myself tried to say, that complexity to be together with the fiber. The diffuser takes it out the sugar without the fiber. By the way, the process is that the washing is like a washing machine, okay, very fast with a pressure hot water, and then you remove the sugar from the fiber. Basically, and most of the ones that use that, they do that separation, even though the sugar, they separate the inulin because they put the agave before to be cooked. Okay, then they clean it, they wash it, they extract the inulin and water, and then they send it to hydrolyze later, that juice, and then convert the inulin in sugar, in fermentable sugar. That is the main way how the diffuser is, no? Take it out. Some ones cook the agave first and then put it in the diffuser. But again, in any of all two things, even raw agave or cooked agave, you separate the fiber and then you put away that part of the flavors and aromas that you can obtain at the end of the process.
In order to make that separation of the inulin from the fiber, you have to use sulfuric acid and chemicals. So, I really don't want to mess around with chemicals in my tequila. And it's something that, again, efficiency, this is an incredible level of efficiency. This is a state-of-the-art efficiency for companies that they are probably aiming to Asian markets and millions of liters. But as far as the result and the product that came out of this technology, we have a completely flat, no flavors in these tequilas. Yeah. But it's very curious because when you drink those tequilas, they usually taste like bananas, or they have flavors that don't belong to the agave. Why? Because the norm allows us to use small percentages of artificial flavors, which I find very, very disturbing. You can add chemicals to bring back the flavors that's supposed to be in the agave.
So David, Enrique.
A small amount, David said, 1%, which is an enormous amount. It can really give a giant influence.
Now,
So Enrique, actually, from what I understood, sorry, Ryan, to interrupt you. So there's no milling or anything with that, right? It goes straight in.
It's straight.
There's no milling, there's no mill, there's no tahona,
There's no cooking.
nothing. It's just no cooking. Just it's one straight process.
so there's two things I know. One, there was a question about how long the diffuser takes. I don't know. I defer to these experts for sure on that.
But,
Because we talked about the autoclave taking 13 to 24
Yeah.
hours, and the oven's 38 to 78 hours.
the whole process of extraction and hydrolyzation, it can go from 4 to 6 hours. That's when you can make tequila within 24 hours.
Yes.
Now, the second
Right.
thing that I wanted to talk about, the second point, because of this lack of flavor, David's talking about this ability to add 1%. Now, it's kind of, I think Chris was going to talk about it, but this idea that the norm for tequila changed recently, and supposedly one of the great things that we hope they'll actually enforce is that now that is no longer the case when it comes to blancos. I mean, it kind of makes sense for all of us in this room. When you have a reposado or an añejo, you can add some colorings, you can add some things so that it can look the same from year to year. I mean, there are some brands that really it's really important for them to make sure that their reposado is exactly the same color from year to year. But there's really no point as far as tequila interchange projects concerned, and I think pretty much anyone who loves tequila, there's really no point to have any additives in a Blanco. There should never be any additives in a Blanco. It's something we advocated for as the Tequila Interchange Project. And it's supposedly now part of the law, and that's an amazing thing. Again, I say it with a grain of salt because let's watch them enforce that situation. But that should be the case, and it always should have been the case, and the fact that there was there was no ever reason, in my opinion, and probably everyone else's, to do that.
Can I make a suggestion? There is a taco place in Philadelphia who sells a lot of tequila. What this place decide to do, because the love of tequila and the awareness by my mentors, and what we decide to do is just to reduce the selection of tequila. We used to have 150 tequilas in that taqueria. And we decide to take out of our selection of tequilas all the diffuser tequilas. If we can do that, if we can send that message to the producers, I think that will be a great way to go back to what the industry has to be, which is preserve, honor, celebrate the agave spirit.
Guys, we only have like 3 minutes left, so.
And last thing,
Yeah.
beyond that, it takes away from
Nice and loud, Chris, so everybody hears you.
Sorry, my voice is shot. Beyond that, it's taken away from jobs.
Yeah.
I mean, there's probably 20 people that work the entire salsa plant. And they're producing 100,000 liters of tequila a day. Less jobs creates, or more jobs in the agave spirits industry for mezcal and for tequila is better for Mexico.
Yes,
It's just a beautiful thing.
that is a beautiful thing. Thank you.
And I wanted to just say something real fast.
Nice and loud again.
Sorry.
To everyone.
And Ryan could probably speak to this even better than I could. But there's an amazing debate going on in the mezcal community right now about getting the diffuser out of the discussion entirely, because mezcal means cooked agave, and there can be no cooked agave flavor if you're not cooking your agave. So let's hope and let's keep our eyes on the prize that mezcal does the right thing where tequila fails. And let's be cognizant of who's doing what, and just as a consumer know what your choices are and spend your money accordingly.
Great.
I think it's important, but if it's a premium brand, they should be doing premium production processes, and they shouldn't be hiding that from them. So-
Absolutely.
I'm
It's
agree.
transparency. It's
Transparency.
So hard. It's so
Nice
hard
nice
to
and
do.
loud, Misty.
Okay, nice and loud. The
We got 2
trouble
minutes.
is,
I've been warned.
We love the fact that you're up there because you're transparent in your processes. So we know that you're making good decisions and you're making delicious products, and we can trust in you. Not everybody is like that. How do we know? How can we find out the real deal and to make good decisions? That's the trouble.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
Well, I mean, and we've David Suro has made it happen by being more by producers being more transparent. Other producers feel the pressure to be more transparent. By consumers being more educated and knowing more and asking tougher questions, there's that pressure again on those producers to be more transparent. If you're asking about the process and they don't know or they can't speak about whether or not they use a diffuser, then you're asking the right questions, and then you can understand that may not be the kind of tequila you want to carry in your bars.
Exactly. So I know we have one last thing. I don't know if you want to briefly before.
Let me another tip for our colleagues on the bar industry. Another thing that we do in the taqueria is that we don't take any tequila into our selection if they don't bring the CRT registration numbers who guarantee us the source of agave. If you guys do that, if you spread the word and we buy tequilas, they are legitimate sources of agave that we can ensure, there are mechanisms there for us to prove that agave can be traced to the origin, where the agave that was planted. It's all about education. It's about education, awareness, and for you to get more demanding from us, the producers.
No, well said. And I think, because I know we're out of time, and I know we were going to talk about distillation, but I think we probably should end on a note where, you guys each have something to say before we leave. So David? Oh, you went, okay. So number one was Fortaleza, excellent lowland tequila. Number two was Ocho.
A what tequila?
Valley, God damn it. I just need you to smack me just every time. Number three was Don Julio. Number four was
Siembra Azul.
Sembra Azul. And number five was Calle, 23. So I know we all had one statement. I guess I'm just going to start off. My one statement was, don't, that famous statement your mom always gave you, don't judge a book by its cover. Just because a brand, I work for a very large company, obviously. But the one thing I love about the company I work for is that we have a lot of small brands that are doing things the right way. So don't always judge a brand just because they might be owned by somebody big. Every big company is different, and every brand and how they're treated is different. So do your research, educate. I think that's a part of what we were talking about today is educating yourself, and don't just judge a book by its cover, and really look into it. And before you start calling names or anything like that, if you touched about it before, is really understand it and to look at it, each one individually, and to taste it and do your own research yourself. So, Ryan, I know you had a closing statement.
The one thing that I've learned working for Del Maguey on that side and also being a bar manager, we all know the deals that go on. We all know when you buy gin, you have to be, the price that they tell you isn't the price that it really is. And if you're selling a ton of the gin or a ton of the bourbon or a ton of the whatever it is, you're going to get a good deal. You're going to get a secret deal. You're going to get an unpublished deal, and you're going to push and you're going to push and you're going to push and you're going to get that liter down to $10 a bottle or less. That's something that just can't happen in the tequila industry or the agave, or the mezcal industry especially. These plants, this industry, the economics that are existing in the world of gin and bourbon and vodka and other spirits cannot be applied to the agave industry at all. The reason we're seeing these technological advances and them being abused in the tequila industry is because there are bar managers out there demanding a cheaper tequila. Hey, I can't sell a $10 margarita to my guests. I need it to be $6. I need you to give me a case on that 10-case drop. I need you to give me the better deal. I need a better deal. Stop doing that. It's ruining the industry. It totally is. And it's going to ruin mezcal if we keep doing it.
Enrique, any last notes?
Zero. No, I'm agree with everything here, and what David said is a big important part that you are the real spokesman from any brand or any category. You and your customers in your places, you are the ones that can show to the community, to your consumer what is good and what is bad, how is done something and what is another thing. For the ones that had contact in Mexico, we are proud. If I try to put all this together, we just passed about a campaign for Don Julio that translated in English is "Let's talk about tequila." Okay, in some way, Don Julio started to say that "Hablemos de tequila" wasn't sorry for talk about my brand, but that's what it is. In some moment, we identify the same. Okay, wait, because you say that it's 100%. Wait, that if you have a fancy bottle, wait for that. That is not what makes a good tequila. No, the good tequila is what is inside. That's what Don Julio launched this campaign in Mexico. Again, very, very successful campaign to say, let's talk about tequila, because we have the level to talk with the people face to face to say what we do, comparing with other ones that, of course, we know that there are several on the market that are not as the good part of our industry. But as everyone said here, try to catch all that you can and transmit to your consumers, teach them, and everyone's, well, maybe not to all the people, but they're all going to be happy community drinking the best things in the world. And thank you for being here.
Thank you. Tomas?
So my summary would take 5 hours, and unless we can lock the doors and assure ourselves that we have enough tequila in here to have 5 hours worth of enjoyment, which I don't think we can. And so in that case, I'm simply going to say thank you, each of you, for being here with us, for showing your support, your interest in agave spirits in general, even though this is centered on tequila. I think most of us realize that tequila has led the way, and now it's opening up to mezcal, it's opening up to raicilla. I had some raicilla last night from David that was something divine. Re-establishing new ideas about what drinking distilled spirits can be about. Bacanora, our stepbrother, Sotol, which we understand from the academics, is not officially tequila or agave spirits, because is it agave or not? Well, I think, as Iban said, it's only by the ones that make up the rules anyway. So anyway, thank you very much for your support. Keep drinking tequila, make the right decisions, and spread the love.
As you do, my friend, always.
Well, I know there's not much time left, but the only thing I want to say is that TIP is a very important voice, and we desperately need support. There is quite a few projects that are right now in the process to develop, and we're going to have a sheet with a sign-in sheet. If you don't mind, and if you want to be part of this voice, you want to be part of this organization, please stop after the seminar. I would like to have your business card or to sign the sheet that we have in order to bring you information and keep you up to date on what TIP is doing in order to preserve this family of agave distilled spirits. And thank you very much. Thank you to all of you, because I travel all over the country, and I see in the last 10 years, I see the work that you guys are doing, and where you bring the agave distilled spirits family is impressive. It's a source of inspiration for us to keep doing what we're doing and what we love so much. And I really appreciate what you guys doing. Ellen, you did that again. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's
Thank you
wonderful.
very much.
And
Thank you for being.
please stop by, give us your business card. We would like to have your contact information to incorporate your thoughts into TIP. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Dave. So just last but not least, I just want to say thank you very much to the Caps for all their hard work. Thank you so much for helping set up the room. Also to our sponsors, the Tequila and Change Project, as well as Don Julio. Thank you very much for allowing us to put together this seminar. This seminar it is going to be on slideshare.net. It's underneath my former name because I can't figure out how to change it. So on there, so it's under Elayne Duke. Shh, don't tell my husband, Mr. Duff. And also anybody, if you Twitter or anything like that, you want to reach out to any of us, our Twitter handles are all up there. So feel free to reach out and ask any questions from there. All right. So thank you guys very, very. Oh yeah.
Thanks, Yvonne.
Yes, Yvonne. Thank you very much,
Thank you,
You're right.
man.
Sorry. Thank you.
And
Thank you
Guillermo
very much.
Sousa, that is in the room too. Guillermo, thank you, man, for beautiful, beautiful tequila.
Yeah, thank you.
Sophie.
And Sophie,
Yes.
Sophie, thank you.